Brielle stood on the front porch, her suitcase resting beside her, rain falling lightly on her shoulders. Her raincoat was damp, and her fingers trembled. Just days ago, she was inside this house, caring for her dying father. Now the front door slammed shut behind her. Her Aunt Marcia had kicked her out. "You were just his charity case," Marcia said coldly. "This house belongs to our side of the family. Your daddy's gone, and you have no place here. Don't come back." Brielle stood frozen, heart pounding. She couldn't believe it. Her father, Ronald, had told her she'd be okay. He said everything would be taken care of. She had left her life in Atlanta, her job, her apartment, her peace, to come home and take care of him through his final days. She cooked his meals, gave him his meds, sat by his bed while he cried in pain. Now that he was gone, the people who barely came around suddenly wanted everything. Her Aunt Marcia and cousins Haley and Derek never helped. They only showed up when it was too late. Brielle reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the silver locket her father had given her the day before he passed. She opened it and stared at the tiny note inside. It only said one thing: "Look inside. You'll know what to do." Her fingers closed tightly around the locket. The rain felt colder now. Her heart felt heavier. She stepped off the porch with no idea where she would sleep tonight. But one thing was clear: something wasn't right, and she wasn't about to walk away without finding out the truth. Brielle Thompson was creative, loyal, and quiet. She had a calm strength about her. Before everything fell apart, she lived in Atlanta and worked as a graphic designer. She had a small apartment, a stable job, and a life she built for herself. But when her father, Ronald Thompson, was diagnosed with cancer, she didn't think twice. She packed up her things, left her job, and came back home to Charlotte to care for him. It wasn't easy. Watching him grow weaker every day was painful. He had always been strong, a former Marine who later built a small logistics company from scratch. He was strict, but he loved her deeply. They were more than father and daughter. They were each other's entire world. Ronald had raised Brielle alone after her mother passed away. When Brielle was just 9, she remembered the long nights he spent working, then coming home to help with homework. He taught her to speak up, to keep her promises, and to never let anyone walk over her. During the final weeks of his life, Ronald would talk to her about the future. He told her he was proud of the woman she'd become. He said the house, his savings, and the shares in his business would all go to her. "I built all this for you," he told her. "Don't let anyone take it away." But Ronald also warned her, not with fear, but with concern. He didn't trust his sister Marcia Davis. Years ago, Marcia had tried to take control of their parents' estate. Ronald had shut her out after that. He told Brielle not to believe anything Marcia said, and to protect what was hers. Marcia was good at pretending. In front of neighbors, she acted kind and classy, but Brielle saw through her. Underneath, Marcia was cold and calculating. Her daughter Haley never worked a day in her life. She spent her time online, shopping, or posting about a life she didn't earn. Derek, the oldest, was full of resentment. He always believed Ronald stole what should have been his father's. None of them visited Ronald when he got sick, not once. They didn't call, they didn't offer help. But when he died, they came fast, like vultures circling. Brielle had just buried her father when Marcia showed up with papers. "There's no will," she said. "Everything goes to the next of kin." Then came the insults. The house was theirs now. Brielle needed to pack and leave. It didn't make sense. Brielle knew her father. He wouldn't just leave her with nothing. She remembered him walking slowly to his bedroom one night, telling her he had put everything in writing. "You'll find it when the time's right," he said. But now, she was out of the house. No job, no savings, no place to go. She was sleeping on her best friend Taylor's couch, surrounded by boxes of her things. The house, the one she cared for, cleaned and filled with memories, now belonged to people who didn't even care her father was gone. Still, something in her heart told her the story wasn't over. She couldn't explain it, but deep down, she believed her father had hidden something that could change everything. Marcia said there was no will. The lawyer Marcia hired didn't even look Brielle in the eye when she asked questions. It all felt too easy, too planned. Brielle didn't have money for lawyers, but she had time, and she had her father's voice in her head reminding her, "Don't trust them, and don't let them take what's yours." She knew she couldn't walk away, not yet. Crashing at her best friend Taylor's place, Brielle sat on the edge of the pull-out couch, the silver locket in her hand. She hadn't opened it since the day her father gave it to her. Her fingers worked slowly, gently unclasping it. Inside was a tiny folded piece of paper tucked in beside a small USB drive. Her heart beat faster. She unfolded the note. It was her father's handwriting. "If they're lying to you, show this to a lawyer. Trust no one but yourself." Brielle's eyes welled with tears. The message felt like he was right there, speaking to her. She looked at the USB, hands shaking, and reached for her laptop. Taylor sat beside her, watching quietly. "What do you think is on it?" Taylor asked. "I don't know," Brielle whispered, "but I think it's what I've been looking for." She plugged the USB into the laptop. A single file popped up. Ronald Thompson will .pdf. Her heart dropped to her stomach. She opened it. There it was. Her father's will. Signed, notarized, dated just 4 months before he died. She stared at every line. The house, to Brielle. His savings and retirement, to Brielle. His business shares, again, to Brielle. Not a single mention of Marcia, Haley, or Derek. Brielle sat back, her hand covering her mouth. Taylor leaned over and read the screen. "Oh my God," Taylor whispered. "They lied to you. They knew." Brielle's breath caught in her throat. Her chest tightened, then burned with rage. "They stole everything from me," she said softly. She grabbed her phone and dialed Marcia's number. She didn't care that it was late. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was sharp when Marcia answered. "You lied," Brielle said. "There is a will. My father left everything to me. I have it. Signed, notarized. You knew, didn't you?" There was a pause. Then Marcia let out a short, cold laugh. "You have a copy, sweetheart. That doesn't mean anything. We've already filed everything with the county. The real will's gone. You're not getting a thing." Brielle went silent. The sound of Marcia's smug voice sent a chill down her spine. "You think you can just walk in and undo all this?" Marcia said. "You're not ready for that kind of fight." Brielle ended the call. Her hand trembled, but her mind was clear now. She looked at Taylor. "She's wrong," she said. "I am ready." Taylor nodded. "Then, let's get a lawyer." The next morning, Brielle took the USB and the note to a small law office downtown. She didn't have much money, but Taylor helped her pay for a consultation. The lawyer, Jason Perez, was young but sharp. He read the will twice, slowly, then looked at Brielle. "This is a valid will," he said, "but it's a scanned copy. That means we need the original to present in court. Without that, it's your word against theirs." "But if it's signed and notarized," Brielle started. "Legally, yes, it matters," Jason said. "But it's not enough to stop what they've already done. You need the original document. If your aunt filed papers claiming there's no will, and the county accepted it, you've got a real battle on your hands." Brielle leaned back, heart sinking. The truth was there, but without proof, it might not matter. "Do you have any idea where he might have kept the original?" Jason asked. Brielle thought hard. Her father didn't trust people, not even lawyers. He always said, the safest place to hide something is where no one wants to go. Suddenly, a memory hit her. "My dad had an old hunting cabin outside the city," she said. "He used to go there when he wanted to be alone." Marcia hated that place. Jason nodded. "Then I'd start there." That night, Brielle and Taylor drove out to the cabin. It was small, dark, and quiet. Dust coated the windows. The door creaked open. Everything inside looked untouched. They searched drawers, cabinets, shelves. Nothing. Then Brielle remembered the loose floorboard under the old desk in the corner. Her dad used to keep old tools under there. She pulled it up and found a small metal box, locked tight. Her hands shook as she used a screwdriver to pop it open. Inside was the original will, the same document from the USB, but in ink, with seals, signatures, and stamps. She stared at it. Her breath caught in her chest. He did leave it for her. She turned to Taylor, tears falling. "I found it." Now she wasn't just fighting for money. She was fighting for truth, for justice, for everything her father wanted for her, and she wasn't backing down. A young lawyer, Jason Perez, sat across from Brielle in his small, cluttered office downtown. He held the printed copy of her father's will in his hands, scanning the signatures, dates, and notary stamp carefully. "This is good," he said slowly, "but it's still just a copy. To legally challenge what your aunt's already filed, we need the original will, in ink, with the seal. Otherwise, their claim stands." Brielle's stomach twisted. "But the original, I don't know where it is. He gave me this in a locket. He said if they lie, I'd know what to do." Jason leaned forward. If we can't produce the real will, they'll argue you forged the copy. And based on what you told me, your aunt's already transferring company shares and selling off furniture. Once those assets are gone, it's much harder to reverse anything. Brielle felt dizzy. It was like watching everything slip through her fingers in slow motion. The house was probably half empty by now. Her father's office, the place where he used to sit late at night, surrounded by old war medals and logistics plans, was likely being cleared out by people who never cared. She walked out of Jason's office in a daze. Her phone buzzed. A message from Taylor. They're at the house. A truck's in the driveway, taking furniture out. She sat on the curb outside the law office and cried, the kind of cry that came from deep in her chest, full of guilt, anger, heartbreak. She should have searched sooner. She should have pushed harder, asked more questions. She remembered her father's voice, calm but serious. I hid the real things somewhere they'd never look. She clutched the locket in her hand, the little piece of him that still felt close. She closed her eyes and tried to remember more. Taylor picked her up that evening. They didn't speak much during the drive, just silence and cold air between them. Then Brielle spoke. I think I know where it is, she said quietly. They drove to Ronald's old hunting cabin, a place deep in the woods, surrounded by silence. He hadn't been there in months before he died. Marcia always called it the dirty shack, said it smelled like gunpowder and oil. Brielle figured she'd never step foot inside it. The cabin creaked when they opened the door. It smelled like dust and pine. The air was cold, untouched. They searched for over an hour, through drawers, under rugs, in cabinets. Nothing. Then Brielle stood in front of the old desk her father used to write on. She remembered something. When she was 13, she dropped a flashlight, and it rolled under the desk. Her dad pulled up a loose floorboard to get it. She dropped to her knees, pulled back the rug, and pried up the board. There it was, a small metal box, locked. Her hands trembled as she pulled it out. Taylor found a screwdriver, and together they popped it open. Inside, the original will, notarized, signed. Ink faded just slightly from age, but clear and official. Brielle stared at it, silent for a long moment. Then she let out a breath that felt like the first one she'd taken in days. They packed it carefully and left the cabin. But as they reached the car, headlights appeared at the end of the long dirt road. A black pickup. It pulled up fast. Derek jumped out, blocking the path. You think you're slick? He said, eyes wild. You and your little friend think you can sneak around and play detective? Brielle felt her heart slam in her chest. She stepped back, holding the box close. Get out of the way, Derek. He walked up close. Too close. You're messing with things you don't understand. That won't save you. My mum's already made her moves. You think a piece of paper's going to stop this train? Taylor stepped between them. Back off. Derek laughed but didn't move. You want to take this to court? He said. Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you. My mom's got people, money, lawyers who don't lose. Brielle held her ground. Then tell her to prepare for a fight. Derek stared at her for a moment longer. Then, without another word, he got back in his truck and drove off. The silence after he left was sharp. Back in the car, Taylor turned to Brielle. You okay? Brielle nodded slowly. Yeah, but this just got real. That night, back at Taylor's apartment, Brielle couldn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table, the box beside her, staring at the will. It wasn't about money anymore. It wasn't even about the house. It was about the man who raised her, the man who told her to fight when it mattered, who trusted her to carry on what he built, and the people who were trying to erase all of that. Marcia had lied. Haley sat back and watched. Derek had tried to scare her, but now she had the truth, and she wasn't afraid anymore. She picked up her phone and texted Jason. I have the original will, ready to fight. This time, she was going all the way. Brielle's lawyer files for an emergency hearing. Marcia's lawyer argues the will is a forgery, and that Brielle is emotionally unstable and desperate for money. He tries to paint her as a grieving daughter, trying to hold on to something that was never hers. Marcia sits calmly in court, dressed in black, like she's still in mourning, but her expression is tight, smug. The judge listens carefully as both sides speak. Jason, Brielle's lawyer, remains calm. He lays out the facts clearly. The will was found in a secured metal box at Ronald's hunting cabin, a place only Brielle and Ronald knew about. It's notarized, signed, and matches Ronald's signature on other legal documents. But Marcia's lawyer keeps pressing. Why was it hidden? Why didn't Mr. Thompson file it? Why would he entrust something so important to a locket? Jason replies. Because he didn't trust his family. And now we see why. The judge frowns. Do you have any additional evidence to support the validity of this will? Jason nods. Yes, Your Honor. One more piece. A video recording, found on the same USB drive in the locket Mr. Thompson gave his daughter. He walks to the clerk and hands over the drive. The courtroom monitor lights up. Ronald appears on screen. He's seated at his home office desk, looking thinner, tired, but his voice is steady. If you're watching this, I'm no longer here, he says. My daughter Brielle is the only person I trust. I raised her alone, and I built everything I have with the intention of leaving it to her. My sister Marcia has never respected that. I hid this will because I knew she would challenge it. But let this video be my final word. Brielle is my heir, no one else. The courtroom is silent. Marcia's mouth tightens, but she says nothing. Jason turns back to the judge. This is Ronald Thompson's own voice, confirming everything in the will. It matches the date the will was signed and notarized. The judge leans back in his chair, quiet for a moment. Then he says, "This court recognizes the validity of the will presented. Effective immediately, all estate activity is frozen pending full review. The court will appoint a temporary estate manager." Marcia jumps to her feet. "You can't do that. This is all being twisted." The judge cuts her off. "Sit down, Mrs. Davis. Any further outbursts will be held in contempt." Then Jason delivers the final blow. "Your Honor, we're also filing criminal claims. We've discovered forged documents used by Mrs. Davis to transfer business assets into her name. These include falsified notary records and illegal account activity. We request immediate investigation." Gasps fill the room. Marcia freezes. Derek, who had just walked in, turns and storms out before anyone can question him. The judge looks directly at Marcia. "If what Mr. Perez is saying is true, you're not just losing this case. You may be facing criminal charges." Brielle doesn't say a word. She sits still, finally feeling the shift. For the first time since her father's funeral, she's not just surviving, she's winning.